and let's get back to the platter. Many things happening this morning. Hello, everybody. Welcome to DG360. This is something interesting and near and dear to many Star Citizens' heart. Exploration. We talked a little bit about last night. I wanted to see Space Tomato's take on exploration. Let's check it out.
Exploration gameplay. Probably one of the most anticipated types of gameplay in Star Citizen, though when I cover it, videos generally don't perform very well. And I think that's because the way it's being developed isn't very flashy or in your face. Last week, on the latest monthly report for Star Citizen, we got to see a sneak peek of a couple.
Which I really find weird because 67% of people pulled at a festival a long time ago when stretch goals were, basically, all voted yes on. 67% of people said that they were in it for the exploration. So I find it really fascinating that content focused on exploration within Star Citizen doesn't do well. It's interesting.
Couple pieces of gameplay that convince me they are still building out exploration gameplay, this kind of nebulous profession right in plain sight. I'm going to walk you through these new different pieces of gameplay we're seeing and how they fit into a puzzle that they've kind of been building for years now. Welcome to the Feature Watch, where I talk more candidly about the features I've seen in the last week in Star Citizen development, and then we discuss how they have developed over the years and what they're going to look like when they come into the game. As you can see here, not in the new place just yet. We are living there, but I am working in a temporary location. If you want to hear more details about it,
Erad told me that he lives with his wife in Istanbul. That's crazy. I did not know that.
Come by the stream. I don't want to bore you all with the details on this video, but I will be here probably for the next month, I hope. So it's going to look better than this, I promise.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
So the first part of this feature watch is around FPS radar and scanning. The changes are highlighting a player's ability to scan the environment and highlight objects of interest.
I don't have that kind of money.
This is obviously the most core part of exploration, because whenever you're doing all of your space travel, when you get to the place you have to go, you just kind of got to scan the locations to find what you're looking for. This could include finding some artifact you're trying to steal or a small historic pendant from a long-lost war. These kinds of little points are really important because they show exploration being built as a profession using a lot of little different types of gameplay. Here's an example. Take this change from the March monthly report, in which emissions were being split out on a per component basis. This is a big part of scouting, finding and identifying fleets or other ships, which is its own form of exploration. Yeah, it might be more military or spec ops focused, but you're still doing the things that are required to explore the verse. Or how about back in February, when the ability to share radar data between all stations in a ship was added, paving the way for radar operators or scanners and dedicated seats in places like the Mercury Star Runner or the Carrack, the 600i. There are quite a few of these stations and ships, and they are specialized to allow for people in those ships to do more exploration. There are also the investigation missions that were introduced at CitizenCon 2022 and are built around more of just looking around.
The investigation missions need fixed. Elliot needs to look at missions in general and redesign some of them, but also just yeet out all of the missions that are borked. And I talk about this, been talking about this heavily for the past 2 weeks, is you've got a lot of new players, and what do they go to right away? They go to the Moby Glass, they go to the contract section, and they accept the mission because it's the fastest point for them to get A to B to the credits. They need to elevate the rewards. A lot of people agree with me. There were some people that disagreed with me. I would say elevate all of the rewards across the board. I've been saying this a lot, and yeet out all the missions that there are problems with. Investigation missions, biggest problem on investigation missions, a lot of the physics grids are involved, and the physics grid, as we all know, is borked, and going around and trying to find somebody on a ship that's going to trap you on crates and you can't get out and therefore die during the investigation missions make it for very bad experiences. So we have to look at these things, and we have to either redesign them or just start fresh and bring out and I'm not just talking about investigation missions. I'm talking about missions that just generally give you bad experiences. A lot of the problems on the missions as well is they don't spawn. A lot of the times the spawn points do not generate. That is a big problem. Okay. Now, of course, you can abandon them. You can push abandon, but like it's just going to essentially what happens is it just essentially gives people the impression that, oh shit, these missions are broken. So what I'm saying is, and you can't really help that with when this mission points don't spawn. That's more of a latency server issue. But like on some of these missions, yes, you can do things absolutely to just take out the ones that are crap, keep the ones that are in that are functioning and working, and then just go back, edit the missions or add new missions, and always keep that fresh, because that's what people are playing most of the time. We polled our audience last night. I said, do you think this is the way that people play mainly? Like, what is the percentage of people that you think are just going straight to the contract area in your mobiGlas and accepting missions? And resoundingly, the voice coming through on the live stream last night was that yes, they thought that like 80% plus of people, that's how they made their creds. That's what they did. Okay. So because of that, we should really consider going through these missions and making them as good as possible, you know?
On the environment, getting an idea of what's going on, and solving a problem. These aren't necessarily standalone missions alone, though. They're being built as modules so that they can use these investigation segments in other missions to build some exploration into them. And then there's Quantum Boost, probably the biggest sign of all this exploration gameplay happening, as it hits that sweet spot of hundreds to tens of thousands of kilometers in terms of the distance you're traveling and your area of interest. They've sort of defined this area of anywhere from 100 to 50, 60, 70,000 kilometers as being that sweet spot of mid-distance pointing and searching and scanning for points of interest that you can then, zoom in on later. You can actually catch Chris Roberts talking about this back in 2022 at CitizenCon, basically defining what he wants exploration to look like, at least ambiguously.
Investigate it. So the whole sort of exploration, investigative gameplay that can happen in space now because of these different modes of travel and the scanning is going to be a huge deal. The whole idea of sort of these three sort of levels of traversal. One is your sort of regular non-quantum one where you're just using your regular thrusters, which is much more sort of limited and works for combat and stuff like that. Then there's the quantum boost, which is sort of to fast run over to a place, and then there's the quantum travel, which is the really long, okay, I'm going to go to this planet that's 500,000 kilometers away and I'm going to be in quantum for 5 minutes to get there.
The key component of this is quantum travel in any direction. This is a pre-3.0 feature that people really miss, and it means there's a lot more places we could run into stuff than the defined trade routes we've already been running between points of interest. I mean, the ability to quantum boost in any direction means that we could just randomly run into an anomaly. Now, Something else that's shown up in monthly reports over the last couple of years is the development of quantum travel blocking or something like that. Can't remember what it was. But the idea that asteroids, asteroid belts, and other things might actually take you out of quantum travel. This could help us run into points of interest more, or just complicate the travel in certain areas that are more dense and happening, like in places like Terra or maybe trade routes. This could also factor into things like the air and halo belt gates, which are meant to protect travel between the inner and outer Stanton system, complicating the economics and trade, but ultimately benefiting an ArcCorp because they own the trade lanes. I posted about this on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and people were not happy about the idea, talking about why wouldn't people just fly over the belt to get around this, and I think that's actually another key part of building out smuggling and other forms of exploration. Now you have derelict ships and other conflicts that might spawn in these alternate routes because ArcCorp's blocked off the belt. This also means that navigating asteroid belts around planets like Yela could get more difficult, further building out the value of spending your time as an explorer going out to these harder to reach places like asteroid belts or clouds or, the ocean. Chris actually says as much as this in the same video when talking about the whole free quantum travel and describing how quantum boosting fits into their idea of exploration gameplay.
So we've done a scan here. That's also the old point of interest, because the point of interest will be just points.
Yeah.
But basically we've done a scan. We've got some points of interest that are multiple 10Ks away.
And you can see the distance there. It says 13,000 kilometers on the right-hand side. So this is obviously just placeholder UI for the quantum boost. Again, you can just boost over there, and it obviously has this interactive gameplay, which obviously went into.
And this, by the way, is that's all programmer work in progress from Yogi on the quantum boost mechanism, because you're just going to have to stay in the zone to keep in boost, otherwise you'll fall out of boost. But we've gone over to the planet here. So what it's allowing you to do is sort of have that mid-level traversal and investigate things.
And then there's another part of that exploration equation. Before the FPS scanning and before the quantum boosting from mid-distance, what sets apart a ship like the Carrack? Long-distance probing. Yeah, not a great name, but this is the idea of using the drones from your ship to triangulate a point in space and figure out what's going on in that area. Now, Torsten Lehmann describes it much better than I could back in 2021, I believe, in a Calling All Devs episode.
Long-distance probing is basically a system that we want to introduce where players have a ship somewhere in space and they can send out like
Why don't they get going on this? This would not be difficult to do right now. Like to add probes as an asset in the game would be a couple object containers, and to add the mechanics for probing would not be that difficult. And then essentially you could have people that don't have to worry about accepting missions at all in the mobiGlas and go around the mobiGlas and have like points of interest that automatically just spawn at normal. Frankly, I think those points of interest should stay away from asteroid fields because of the amount of object containers and the amount of data that's there, the amount of like communications with the servers, a lot of errors, a lot of glitchiness. The more object containers you have, especially in the state that Star Citizen is now, dudes, they need to be putting this shit out in deep space where there isn't a lot of asteroids, and these probes can go to those points, go to spawn points generated that are generated in instant system, and there'd be a whole nother gameplay right now. I don't think that's very hard to put into the game right now. I think that would also help people because they would be farther away from others. But like scanning in the game in general should not be that difficult to add. I mean, this should be coded in, and this should be in it now in this alpha state. It should actually be in it right now. The more things that you can do, the better. More asses will stay in seats, and I don't see this as being a very complicated thing to put in the alpha state right now so that people have more to do and they can circumnavigate through scanning and not have to worry about accepting borked missions and just going to spawn points that are out away from everybody, probably smoother experiences because less people you got to worry about, less latency, less object containers and data around other points of interest where everybody's traveling. I don't know why this isn't common sense in Cloud Imperium right now. Like, I don't know why this is not a common sense thing right now. Like, why can't this happen right now? Should be super simple and clear up traffic lanes and clear up latency issues. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Probes and
what are you guys
place
talking
them
about
anywhere in the same system, and those probes will ping and reveal basically objects that are of interest there, or anything that might be there. And those objects could be like mining places, derelict stations, ships, anything that we could imagine that you could find there.
I was actually going to get mad at my chat because it's not relevant to any talking point that I literally have laid out for the past 5 minutes, but then I realized they're talking about how Drake is the best ship, and then I'm just gonna I'm not gonna be upset because obviously my fans have good taste, so just try.
And we could spawn and so you find something, then what you have to do there is triangulate. So you have to bring in the probes into position, so you get the more precise signal on that. And once the signal strength is enough, you can either decide to generate a quantum beacon that you can basically jump to. You could store that information and sell it to other players. Or what we aim to have there is an analysis gameplay where you basically have a signature, a unique signature of what you found there, and then you compare it on your ship. So basically the drones, the probes sends back the signature and use it on your PC on the ship, and you compare the signature with everything that you either bought or you collected yourself in the library. And then you get an idea, okay, this might be in Gladius, this could be in a mining field. And then you can still decide to, okay, I jump there and I look at it, or the risk is too high, I don't jump there. So
there's even a hint in there about how this could tie into data running, which we will be talking about a lot on this channel. That's my own neck of the woods in terms of gameplay. The idea that you can break out of that exploration loop at any point, from getting the long distance scan data to getting a little bit.
Data running and hacking should go hand in hand. Hacking is an element of game design that needs to be put in ASAP. And I'm not just talking about buying a fucking card and plugging it into a system and it auto hack shit. I'm talking about actual hacking gameplay that means something, for breaching ships, for hacking into ships, for hacking their systems. You know, I see the origin point of engineering, and I like the fact that they're going there, but it should be another layer down in terms of hacking. And also that hacking should bring about data, which is, you know, areas where the ship has been, or information about the routes that the ship particular takes. I mean, that's probably asking for too much. I get that, but there should be at least another layer down of gameplay that's a little bit more immersive when it comes to hacking and scanning, and that would tie directly also into data running, especially for the people that are into that, like Space Tomato. There should be much more gameplay in terms of that. My fantasy and I talked about this long time ago when I was theory crafting hacking, when I was theory crafting data running, is like, and this is not going to be in anytime soon, and it's probably not going to be in ever, maybe. But what I would love to see is hacking gameplay that gives you information about the pilot, his ship, routes, any information where he has scanned for very awesome roid fields, any valuable spawn points that can get you credits, and take that data and then you run with it, quite literally, pun intended. And then you get that data, you can look at it, and you can basically go to those points that that crew took the time to scan and explore, and exploit it. Whether you want to sell that data to another member, and then we get into actual contracts between players, which isn't in the game. You can transfer money in the game through the Moby-Glass, through the Mo Trader, but I also want the ability to contract out items, which again, I'm really looking forward to CitizenCon this year, and I definitely want to see where the fuck Tony Z is, and I definitely need to hear an economic talk. These are elements of gameplay that we've been talking about since 2015-ish, 2016 we were theory crafting. It's nice to see the baby versions of it, but it's nowhere near where we want it to be. Is it ever going to get to that point? Probably not. I'm being realistic about this, but like, it's not to say that they won't take the time to work on it later. This is a team that continually will work on this project as long as those revenues remain healthy. And I would imagine at some point that they would get the gameplay to that level. At least I would hope that they would. You know, I don't think they'd sit on their laurels and not give us that level of depth, but who knows?
A bit closer and finding a good signature to just going straight to the place and finding the thing that you're looking for. It's pretty cool. You could break out and resort to a data running position where you could go the whole exploration route. I can't wait to see how that plays out, but I also like the way they talk about analyzing the data. So instead of just finding something and you found it, you find a signature that's kind of nebulous, and depending on your own player skill, your knowledge, or what you know about the game, you can identify that signature. Sort of like how you can understand rocks and mineral compositions when you're doing mining.
It's up to the players, once they get the full analysis, to figure out what that thing is. They can jump, they cannot jump, they can sell the information, they can sell it as, oh, I found this very rich asteroid field. And when that person buys it, looks over the analysis data, oh, yeah, that looks like an asteroid field. But when they jump there, it's not an asteroid field. There's, I don't know, it's a booby trap. There's a turret on every rock there. And as soon as you jump in, it goes you up. Because the guy that did the analysis didn't go all the way to figure out everything and actually jump there, see himself what is in that space.
What is important for us is definitely that it's player skilled base. So the more data you collected, the more precise your predictions are. So the longer you have been doing that already, the more precise your data is, the higher the value is.
Rip Dan Truffin. Isn't Dan Truffin gone now? I love Dan Truffin and what he added for mining. Like what Dan Truffin did for the mining game is awesome. And I think that Dan's gone. I could be wrong.
That you can ask for if you sell them.
And between all this long distance probing and medium distance jumping and short distance scanning, what are you finding? Well, they've been saying it this whole time.
Is Dan still there without appearing?
Derelict ships, derelict space stations, abandoned ruins, hidden fleets, old battlegrounds with salvageables, ground surveys to determine base locations, resource deposits. There are so many things they can build points of interest from, as long as the servers can handle it after server meshing. We've seen them being built over the years, from the derelict outposts to the derelict ships, to the underground facilities, the caves, the rivers, the lakes, the planets, the clouds. All these things are meant to be able to be found and house things that are actually, hopefully, interesting to find. And then there's the idea of game spawned missions. There are a lot of map details still missing from what we know right now, but we know that maps will be downloadable. We know that ground locations will need to be surveyed for resources, and we know that the star map will have ground data. This is speculation, but who's to say the game doesn't automatically give out missions for players to just go scan random parts of planets? Sure, you can take whatever you find, but that data is what they want, and you turn that in for a fee. The game can then allow that to be supplied out to other players as the maps that they're buying.
That would be fantastic. This would be fantastic if able to hack into a deeper level of hacking gameplay, if able to hack into another person's ship, hack data like this, load it into the star map, being able to set it as a navigation point. That would be the way I'd go about it. This is the stuff dreams are made of, right? I like to dream, but I think this is a very far way off. But I will tell you what, that's how I'd go about it. I'd make sure that the hacking gameplay was immersive and that the data could be corrupted. If you did not hack the system correctly, the system would be like, nope, F you did it wrong. How detailed and how in-depth you want the hacking gameplay is, you know, completely up for debate. But it should be deeper. If you fail hacking based upon your own skills and the level of security that you have on your ship, or perhaps you can buy a component that is a station that stores your data, and that particular component, you can upgrade it to like low security to the high security navigation system. Okay, so you buy navigation system component that goes into your ship and you can upgrade it. And as you upgrade that particular piece of equipment, the security gets better and better and better, so that if you do have intruders on your ship, if they come in and they're hacking it, they're going to have a more difficult time if you put more money into your navigation system, right? So you're hacking the navigation system. You've got like a very expensive navigation unit. You go into it and there's variable versions of hacking gameplay, and that hacking gameplay and those variables are determined upon the equipment and how much it costs, right? That's how you break it down. That's how you design it. Then if you're successful, great. You take that information, you can then load it up through the mobiGlas. You have a point that you can get to in the star map. You push the navigation button, you click that as a waypoint, and boom, you can go there. Or you can put it on a contract system and then sell that information. Now, since there's going to be persistence, the question then becomes is how long does that data stay reliable? How long does that nav point and that mission or area stay propagated? That's something else. That's something completely, that's a great discussion, because then you're talking about server tech, then you're talking about how long should it then exist after the fact? And that's a great question. That's another debate. But in terms of the game designs and the mechanics on the hacking, putting it and plugging in, if you're successful, into the map and then just going to it at will, or then designing the mode trader to actually trade assets, would be out of this world, fantastic gameplay. And I'm not quite sure how hard that would be able to do, to code that in, to design that into the game. But that's how I would want to see it. I'm sure that there are people, especially like Space Tomato, who are into data running that would also like to see it that way. Because I would imagine that hacking and data running go hand in hand, right? Let's keep going.
To go and navigate that system. This can allow explorers to feel like they are actually part of the game, making a difference, and also supply something to the rest.
And it's interesting because we talk about this like this, and I noticed that either people are asleep and not talking lively in chat, or they're just frankly not interested, which is surprising to me. It is surprising to me. Maybe, you know, Space Tomato's analysis at the very beginning of this was right, that, you know, people are just so hungry for this to come out right now that they don't even care anymore about talking about these issues. You know, and essentially hear crickets because people are just succumbing to this numb sensation. Like, why does it matter? Why should I care anymore? Or we're never going to see this. And I would just like to say to people, like, liven up. You know, don't worry about it. Take a breath. It's going to take a long time, but it's really important to talk about these issues because this is a game that you're going to play, and it's very important to be vocal about this. People would generally say, oh, theory crafting was so 2014, 2015. I personally think that theory crafting should still be in the mainstay and perhaps even more important now than when we started talking theory craft when there was no game. Because now we're getting to the point where changes are being made that some people aren't happy about. Master modes, the bed logging discussion. You know, there's a lot of changes happening right now where people should be vocal about these things, and it is directly tied into theory crafting and game design. And now is the time that you need to speak out more than ever and talk about these issues.
So the game that's supposed to be there, but they've clearly hinted at in the past, is going to be something you kind of have to acquire. Last CitizenCon, Zane in the UI team actually talked about how you would need to download maps sometimes, and I do think that maps that are not in the main locations of a system might have their data obscured maybe, or not complete unless you go and buy it or acquire it some other way. That could be huge for exploration. And then, of course, there's the ability to just save and share your own markers. Unfortunately, in 3.23 with the map update, we didn't get the ability to share these markers, but soon we should be able to pin and share and give our location to other people.
That's cool.
This means you could save weapons caches and other types of things once you find them, and then sell those locations just to your org mates or your friends.
Yeah.
All that matters for exploration to be a thing is that you can make money from it, right? And you can see that the company has been building all of these things to make that happen. The locations, the assets, the tools that can procedurally create these places. The narrative team is also getting more involved in all of this with the storytelling and creating little artifacts and things you can find out in the verse. The missions team is also still building out those investigation missions we talked about. And interactable and gameplay elements seem to be coming together to actually support some more stuff in these locations once they get there. Right now you get out to a derelict site, there's not really much to do. Soon we'll be able to charge and drain components, cut through materials, power manage environments, manage the power of systems, interact with the environment. We'll encounter hazards like radiation and weather, new fauna that's coming into the game, better traversal, obviously, with EVA and some of the new prone mechanics, and of course the actual scanning functionality that bridges the gap between the player and all these different things. Yes, they keep showing the scanning and all that stuff when it comes to combat scenarios, much like the Master Modes conversation hasn't really talked much about quantum travel either, but I think these things are going to be pretty big for exploration gameplay and all the stuff surrounding it. There are
the cohesion is the real problem. The cohesion of the game design is the real problem. Going like we'll talk about this later. We're going to talk about Master Modes on another highlight, but like the ability to take these ideas and to make them intuitively, to make these an experience that's intuitive is what they're having a problem communicating to the gamer base, is my personal opinion on this. And it's not only with the flight experience, it's with other experiences within the game. It needs to be a much more intuitive experience. It needs to happen much more naturally and teach you within the game as you do these things. And there needs to be a better translation and communication to the player base through the game design itself. And that happens with, you know, that's got to happen with scanning and other mining's fairly intuitive. I think that's a lot has to do with Dan Truffin and all the work that he put into mining personally. And again, like Dan Truffin was a great dude, and I'm not quite sure if he's still with Cloud Imperium or not. But I would maybe get Dan involved in other elements of game design, but I think Dan's gone now. So, you know, A lot of the times this all gets lost in translation to the player base because they have a horrible time of the cohesion of all these elements together and pushing it through to the player base.
There are really only a couple of switches left to flick to make exploration a real paying profession that you can just survive in the game with. 2 of those switches are the FPS scanning and radar editions and the quantum boost edition. And both of those might actually be coming in 4.0 if we get lucky. They're not on the roadmap yet,
Mickey.
but I think at least one of them might sneak in. If you want to keep up to date on how that progress is going towards 4.0.
All right, good video by Space Tomato. Exploration, very important. I think right now scanning, deep range, long range scanning could be added very easily. Put the probe assets in the game. Have ships like the Terrapin and other scanning ships be able to do what it is that they're supposed to do, and go out to points in deep space. Like I said earlier, giving more things to do for more people will keep asses in seats. It seems like a no-brainer to me. It doesn't seem like it would be that hard to make it a very successful endeavor to do. And it just seems like that's what needs to happen right now in the alpha state to keep people happy. And a redesign of missions and a reimagining of hacking, design, and how that ties into data running go hand in hand. And a really good video and really good talks. Space Tomato, awesome. I'm glad you did a video about this.